Hey guys, welcome to Travel Fields. Today we're going to talk about using this, a shower curtain, to light your films. Hey guys, my name is Maddie. I actually realized the other day, I don't know how many of you guys know my name. Whenever somebody recognizes me on the street or at Buffer Festival when we were there, they'd yell, Travel Fields. I don't know if people know my name. But if you want to know more about me, follow me on Instagram. I post all sorts of little stories on there, and you'd get to know me a little bit better if you want to. Oh, also, if you haven't yet checked out the Placer Cam app that me and my brother made, is to make these 3D track text right inside your phone. We've done a full revamp of the app. There's a bunch of different bugs in iOS 11, and we just basically took it all apart, went all around the Apple stuff so we could get rid of those bugs, and we just revamped the whole thing. So it works way better now. Update the app, and if you haven't checked it out yet, link is in the description. I think you're gonna enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. And like I said before, all the money that comes from the app, we're gonna be putting back into the app and making other apps for filmmakers, which is pretty cool and exciting. All right, so let's get into today's tutorial. We're talking all about lighting once more. Like I said last time when we were talking about lighting is one of the hardest parts about filmmaking, I think. It's really hard to see light and know how to use it properly. But with some simple tricks and techniques, you can get really nice lighting and you don't even have to spend a lot of money on it. So when I watch people's lighting, especially in the YouTube world, one of the biggest mistakes people make is that they buy a cool LED light and then they just shine it straight at them, and that's it. And that actually doesn't look very good at all. If you just take a light and just shine it straight at your face, it actually looks pretty bad. It doesn't look very flattering and it doesn't look natural at all. So last time we talked about the different positions or angles you can put lights in to get some better looks, but today we're going to talk about diffusion.
Diffuse reflection is the reflection of light or other waves or particles from a surface such that the ray incident on the surface is scattered at many angles rather than at just one angle, as in the case of specular reflection.
A light modifier or diffusion is basically something you put in between the light and the talent or the subject. In this case, it'd be the light and then me. There's going to be something in between to change the look of the light. But before we get into looking at how a shower curtain can be a really good way to diffuse light, let's look at some theory that's behind this whole diffusing thing. First off, and probably the most important, is that the bigger the light source is, the softer the light is gonna be. And the softer the light is, the more flattering it's gonna be. It's gonna look really natural and really just nice looking on the face. Whereas if you're taking just a really small source light and shining at the face, it looks really ugly. You guys have all seen it when you take an iPhone and you light somebody, it just looks brutal. It does the job, but it doesn't look good. So the bigger the source is, the more flattering the light will be. Number two is that the closer the light is, the bigger the source will be, and therefore the softer the source will be. So you can have a really huge source, but if it's really far away, for example the sun, it's really harsh and spotlighty. Or you could have not that big of a light, but if you put it really close to the face, it can be a nice soft light. So that's number two. And number three is the closer the light is, the more intense it will be, or the stronger it will be. So this is something to keep in mind when you're using diffusion, because you're gonna be losing some of that light because of the diffusion, but the closer you have the light source, the brighter it's gonna be on the face. All right, so keep those in mind, and let's get into the different ways that we can diffuse our light. So first off, we just have a control shot. It's just a bright light shooting straight at Jay, and it doesn't look very good. The light is a really good light, but shooting a harsh light like this straight at the subject, it just doesn't look very good. It's not flattering, and I don't think it looks natural either. You can tell right away that there's a light in the subject, and I think that just makes it look really unnatural and ugly. And as a side note, we're using the Aperture 120D to light these examples, but you can do this with any light. You don't need an expensive light, but the 120D is definitely a really good option. It's not that expensive compared to a lot of the other LED options, and it's really high powered, really good, but you don't need a fancy light. You can do these principles with any light. Alright, so our first diffusion is a softbox, and this one's actually made by Aperture, so it fits really well on there. And again, it's really cheap compared to a lot of the other options. I think it's a couple $100s, whereas some softboxes can be thousands of dollars, which is just mind-boggling to me because it's just cloth basically. But the light dome is perfect for diffusing the light, and it's really easy to set up and use. You get super nice soft light, and it's all on one stand, and it's nice because it kind of controls the spill because it's just coming in that one direction. It's not going out the back or anything, not flying into a wall, which are all things that affect your lighting in the end. So it's controlling it all for you at once. And look at the difference between just the harsh light and then the softbox. It looks so much better. It's so much more flattering and so much nicer looking on Jay's face. Now it does cost you some money. It's not super cheap, and it's a fixed size, so you can't make it bigger and bigger just adding to it. It's gonna be that fixed size, so you have to kind of work with that. It has some limitations, but it is a super easy way to modify your light. And that's actually what I use for all my tutorials. I have the light dome right here that's lighting me. So instead of just using an LED, buy a softbox, shoot it through that, and you have really nice soft light. All right, so let's say you don't want to buy a softbox, you don't want to spend money on that. What can you do? Well, the first option is to use a shower curtain. A shower curtain is actually a really good way to diffuse light. And what I do is basically just take a C-stand, put it horizontal, and then waterfall the shower curtain over the stand. And then you just clip it in, and there you go. Shoot your light through that. You have really nice soft light for super cheap. A shower curtain costs like, what, 10 bucks? So it's a super cheap alternative, and it looks really good. Compare it to the Control without any diffusion, it looks so much better. So big advantages is that it's cheap. You can even add a couple shower curtains together and shoot a whole bunch of lights together to just get this huge, massive, soft source. Or you could even double them up and get an even softer look. You are gonna take away some of that light intensity, but you're gonna get a really nice, soft look. And don't be afraid to use these kinds of things because they don't seem legit enough because it's a shower curtain. It works really well. Even Hollywood uses a lot of these kinds of tricks to light their films, which we'll talk about in just a second. Next, you could take that light and you could bounce it into something to make it a bigger source. So here we have an example of taking a reflector and we're bouncing the light into the reflector, and then it's coming from the reflector and then hitting Jay's face. So we go from this small light to bouncing it and then making it a much bigger source. It's kind of like a softbox, but you're bouncing instead of just shooting it through. It's fairly cheap to get a reflector. A lot of us already have one, but again, it's a fixed size. It's a little bit harder to mount. I don't really like using this technique that much, but it is one way to diffuse your light and make it softer. And then the last one, which I think is super interesting when I found out about this, is using something called BEADBOARD. Now this is something you can just get from Home Depot, and I think it costs around $20 for one huge sheet. And what I did is just cut it in half, tape it together, then you have a white side and a silver reflector side. So this is a really cool way that you can bounce your light. And believe it or not, Hollywood even uses this technique all the time. So this is an even cheaper way than the reflector to get a nice bounce source. And the nice thing is you could just make a bunch of these because they're so cheap, and you could just shoot lights into them and make a massive source if you wanted to. Or you can just use one and bring it nice and close and get nice soft light. It is a bit hard to mount, but there's something called a quacker clamp which helps with that, but again, that's gonna cost you money. But there's some different ways to mount it. I basically just made a hole in the middle of it so you can either hold it by hand and reflect, or I can stick it on a stand and shoot the light into it, and there we go. So there we go, 4 easy ways to diffuse your light, make it softer, make it more flattering, and most of these are really cheap too, which is really nice. So don't just buy a light and shoot it at yourself, diffuse it, but not only that, position it in the right place so you get nice shadows, a nice look on the face. And remember, if your light isn't that strong, just bring it closer, bring it like just off camera so it's right here shining at your face, and that way it's gonna be a lot stronger than if you put it farther away. And also, I just wanna say, flattering light is not necessarily the kind of lighting that you want for all your film jobs. Sometimes you need a little bit more of a moody look, or just a more raw look, or a more harsh look. But for a lot of things like YouTube videos, I like to use soft sources. I think it looks really natural and it looks really pleasant to the eye. All right, that's it for me today. I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions about lighting, leave them down below and I'll try to answer some of those or make some other lighting tutorials. Guys, if you enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, enjoy the filmmaking process, and go get some of those travel feels. And for all of you who are interested, this is what I'm using for my lighting setups. I have 3 lights going on right now. There's one on the background, one that's just filling in my face a little bit, and of course we have the key light. So here's all 3, the backlight, a little bit of fill, and the key light. It's a dance party.